1 of 4 are children, live in households facing food insecurity. The coalition's latest annual survey indicates that local New York City's emergency food providers, such as food pantries, soup kitchens, and brown bag programs, reported a 20.8% increase in need for their services due to the city's recent recession. The Harlem Hospital Center Department of Food and Nutrition Services wants to help curb these alarming statistics this holiday season by conducting its annual food drive. From Monday, November 11th through Tuesday, December 24th, there will be donation receptacles located throughout Harlem Hospital Center. All donations will be shared with the Harlem Mothers Save, Stop Another Violent End. If you have questions, feel free to contact Mr. Sean Shivers at 212-939-1936 or Chanel Rogers at 212-939-1935.
WHCR 90.3 on the FM dial, coming to you from the campus of City College in Harlem, USA. The program that you're about to hear, Respect for Life, does not reflect the views, attitudes, whims, deeds, or any other proclivities of the management of WHCR, nor that of the administration of City College. However, the program does reflect the research done by the participants in the program who are live and live in color in studio by phone interview. And, of course, there is you, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, the first-class citizens of the world. There is you in step with the Almighty. And that means you're here and you're listening. You got another shot at doing some good deeds. We have another shot at doing some good deeds. And we can do that by wishing ourselves a fantastic day, giving up prayer and some good deeds. And you might benefit from that. But definitely, if you don't benefit from it, your children, your mate, and others around you will benefit. That's the way it works. You tap into the universal source. The universal source returns to you. And we will be right back. We're going to check this phone call here. We're going to be right back after this announcement.
For a twist on a seasonal classic, the Apollo Theater presents Duke Ellington's Nutcracker Suite and Sacred Music in the show Ellington at Christmas, featuring Savion Glover, Keith David, Liz Wright, Priscilla Baskerville, the David Berger Jazz Orchestra, the Abyssinian Baptist Church Choir, and students from the Dance Theater of Harlem. That's Ellington at Christmas, Saturday, December 7th at 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. Tickets are available at Ticketmaster.com. For more information, visit www.apollotheater.org.
And as you hear our promotions on WHCR, we ask you to participate, and that's how we maintain a stream of funds coming in by way of the promotions that you hear on WHCR. And the promotions always relate to something good, beneficial for you and I. To God belongs the glory, and we thank the Most High for blessing us with another day on this good earth, another day to do some good deeds and benefit ourselves, our families, our communities, and humanity at large, treating everyone the way we want to be treated. And we can create an aura and a feeling within our immediate surroundings that bring good to everyone. In terms of supporting black businesses, one this week is on tap, and that's Make My Cake at 139th Street and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard and St. Nicholas Avenue and 116th Street, right across from Corinthian Baptist Church on 116th Street. You'll find Make My Cake ready to serve you with Thanksgiving goodies, and that's for your benefit and for the benefit of those businesses that hire people from within the community. And a word of advice, and from an inside source, I'm the inside source because I patronize 139th Street Make My Cake. A very secret weapon is the carrot muffins. Now, if you get some carrot muffins for Black Giving, otherwise known as Thanksgiving, where black people get together, you will score a home run. And that's my recommendation, some carrot muffins from the 139th Street store. They don't have the Baker Dadan down at 116th Street, but the Baker Dadan up at 139th Street, he will hook you up some carrot muffins, some red velvet cake, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once again, we are very happy to have with us a young man straight out of Philadelphia, USA. This is part 2 of a interview series that we began last week, and we are welcoming to the mics of Whcr Papa John of Philadelphia. God bless you, my brother.
God bless you, too. It's wonderful to be here.
I want to start with some of what we discussed last week. We discussed psychology, your involvement in psychology coming on the heels of your mother getting into psychology in a very, very deep way. A number of courses or degrees that she was pursuing, and yourself being involved in that area. We also dealt with healing from a holistic standpoint, or the health of the black community. I want to go to psychology, and what is it in the study of psychology that your mother pursued and you that you can justify as being valid for the healing of mental health problems among black people?
Well, Mom first got into clinical psychology, which is it was actually the beginning of the development for community rehabilitation centers in the residential areas. And so that's how she pretty much found her way in, and was actually thought to be a pretty revolutionary idea. The hospitals and clinical hospitals were, like Byberry, were finally closing down. And so thinking that they could take certain individuals and place them into rehabilitation centers in the residential area would be okay. The one impressive part was the community did not, particularly in the black and Spanish communities, did not protest the idea of having someone seeking mental health in their areas. So that's how we all began getting into the systems of treating blacks, Spanish, and some whites in community rehabilitation areas.
And my question, that's the work aspect. The question is, what is it in what I will call Western psychology that you found that validates it being applied to mental health cases among black people in America?
Well, funny, that's a good question. You know, there wasn't a lot of validation in the Western approach to clinical psychology or the development of mental health growth and wellness in Western approaches to mental health. And that being said, it largely had to do with after coming out of the 60s and gaining a lot of rights, as you can recall, many of us began experiencing the social worker.
Mm-hmm.
The social worker, probably unbeknownst to a lot of young, eager, newly employed people out of college and so forth, was probably the single most destruction of the family than any other system that has been in place in the government, including just straight out poverty and so forth. So, for the simple reason that we began looking for help, financial benefits, welfare, food stamps, and so forth. Well, according to the social workers, you couldn't keep your grandmother, your father couldn't be there, your Uncle Al, and I don't just throwing Uncle Al's name out there, or any extended family member Now, if you recall, I'm sure many of your audience may be able to recall, that the development of health in the black family throughout our communities and certain rural and in urban areas were largely involved our extended families. Grandmom, grandpa, dad, everybody was a part of that.
Right.
And the problems that we were facing in those extended families were few and far between, in as much that you always had your mom, your grandmother, or your dad, or your grandfather who helped to keep the children and people on the straight and narrow. So even if you did have somebody that had a mental health problem, for example, it wasn't something that we didn't throw our people out into the streets,
right,
or just throw them in the hospitals. We dealt with them.
Right.
And that's where Western approaches began to fail. They decided to change all of that it was time for a change. And I could go on and tell you why, but as we can move on to.
Well, the question after that question that I just gave you is, what have you found in your extended study, particularly in African religion and philosophy, that would add to what you have learned in psychology and make your approach valid for healing and putting into balance the problems or the challenge that we find within our communities, whether it's abuse of some sort or depression or a lack of confidence, etc.?
Well, it's almost a two-pronged approach. One being sensitivity. You can never overvalue or underestimate the value of sensitivity in given situations. Even when you want to just hurt someone, having sensitivity allows you to pull on your good senses and your mother wit, and at the same time be able to be effective or the right tool that an individual need at the given or individual time that they need it. Sensitivity allows you then to take an individual who has done things that you may think of that just gets on your nerve, or just tears you to no end, but through the approach that you take at certain given moments tends to get through barriers the individual will put up, because barriers are the only thing that they've known to fight with. They don't have weapons. They don't have. They fight with barriers, stubbornness, consistency, and negative behavior. You name it. All kinds of self-injurious behaviors, pica, and so we've come to discover that through a certain approach that we have trained on, that a certain sensitivity of a situation, knowing the fact that you may treat an individual who has a problem, and even if nothing went your way, when it's all over, you get to go home to your family, your friends. That person is stuck in their illness and stuck in a place that they cannot get out of without you. And so you walk away with an understanding that I didn't win today, but I'll go back tomorrow and we'll give it another try. Now, on the other side of that, as I said, it was two-pronged. The other approach being straight in your face, this is your mama talking to you kind of approach. Mm-hmm. This is your daddy speaking. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, it's unfortunate the breakdown of our societies, because you hear a lot of young people who can benefit from such things. Well, you ain't my daddy, mm-hmm. And oftentimes, without having to say it, I know a lot of people think it. Well, I know I can kick your tail like I'm your daddy, mm-hmm. but that's not necessarily an approach mm-hmm. that you want to lead on in terms of violence. But what you want to lead with is the authority in voice and command and approach and with love, ironically, with actual care that a person can see that you, with that type of approach, can break down many barriers, and let a person see that, on the other hand, that you can also follow through with sensitivities of their problems. You can begin to break that person down to realities. The approach in it, psychologically, is being able to reach an individual beyond their psychological makeup and be able to touch certain things that allow them to trust and let go. Now, it doesn't mean that you're curing schizophrenia, but what it does mean is a person can value who you are and what you mean to them, and then understanding whatever their illnesses are, and begin to find their way to wellness.
Okay, being able to reach them beyond their psychological makeup, that means their psychological condition at that time?
Correct.
That quote, you're treating, end quote.
Right.
Okay, so the approach that works is two-pronged, meaning you have these two options or the combination of, and that is sensitivity. You mentioned number one, and holding your point rather than blurt it out, listening, being careful as to what you say that would drive them in the opposite direction, hurt them, and emotionally or from their own self-image, that sort of thing. Voice of authority. Listen, man, let me give it to you straight. Boom, the voice, the tone, etc. Now, that was in response to the question of what have you found in African religion and philosophy that of itself can heal lend itself to healing the mental challenges of black people, or in combination with what you learn in psychology, the Western psychology, and what you get in these universities, etc. Is that the answer, or is there something deeper?
No, there's always something deeper. What you take away from the university is structure, the mechanics of how to do a thing. But what you then have to rely on, or the individual who is not only wise but looking also to go a little further than what they see what the construct is, and that is understanding through whatever your spirituality approach is. Mine is an African spirituality, and I go back to those roots, which continues to embrace the whole family value. It's not just me and my wife and my kid. I don't have nothing to do with my brother. No, it goes into African spirituality goes into the embrace of a total family system.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Now, it works different in Africa than it is in the United States, for the simple fact that in Africa, in a given faith, we are all born of that faith. Mm-hmm. Even in Islam, you find even in the West, there are Muslims that were never converted to Islam at all. They were always Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the indigenous faiths that they found when they migrated to those areas, were people who were involved in original religion, original spiritual thought and thinking and social practice and traditions and culture. So they've had that. But we here in the United States who have come to a mind of ancient wisdom in a modern time, embracing African religion, has had to do so without going forward with my mother or my brother or sisters. They remained in church, and I remained at the temple or wherever we found ourselves. But it didn't mean that we couldn't continue to be family and continue to love one another. So you begin to learn then are the values of an ancient philosophy coming out of those African traditions or Islamic traditions and things like that, which are also African traditions. And you walk away with a different set of value in terms of what is your brother, and what you are as a father or a leader in your area or your community, even if it's dealing with people who are not involved in what you are involved in. What you must always continue to be is an example of what you are. And by being the example of what you are, then you take to the game a different set of values and rules that you can apply in given moments. My success has come from that approach, being able to reach individuals, young men and women who, I'm also, one of my titles, I'm called in a lot of the places that I have worked with individuals, I'm called Dad or Papa. They call me Papa George or Papa John. And the reason for that is not me asking, no, you're going to address me as this. It was a thing that they came to realize about me as a father-oriented or father-like figure in the lives of boys and girls or young men and women or older men and women who became like brothers. But they looked at me in a different sense because of the value of the teaching that you bring and the instructions you give and the examples that you set.
I'm listening to you and I missed the point. Well, let me do this as I catch up with the left and the right side of my brain. This is WHCR 90.3 on the FM dial, coming to you from the campus of City College in Harlem, USA. Respect for Life is the program. Our guest online is Papa John, who is in Philadelphia, USA, heavy background in psychology and counseling, and our discussion relates to each and every one of us as it relates to our mental balance. Last week he made the proclamation that I said was made by another psychologist to me, Dr. Edwin Nichols of Washington, D.C. Last week Papa John said, everybody needs therapy. And it's when you think you don't need therapy that you probably do need therapy of some sort. In fact, the therapist in the black community is the preacher, unbeknownst to himself or herself most times on Sunday. It is the presentation that is given in conjunction with the music or the choir that is of a therapeutical nature, whether we understand that or not. I do understand that. Now, that's Brother Leroy's Psychology 777. And after I began to go back to church and began to look at the components of what happens in the church, I make the proclamation that the church is an expression of African religion and philosophy under the umbrella of Christianity. And that goes back to the enslavement period. I observed in one church a ceremony where they had the congregation was marching around the church. And I found that strange, but because I found that strange, I stumbled onto something in a book that explained, or not explained that, but gave a presentation of a ritual in African religion and philosophy where we circle. We go around in a circle as a part of prayer and celebration. Now you nodded. You said, when I talked about going around a circle. What is that from your experience in African religion and philosophy?
Completeness. The circle. It's funny you explain that. Let me just touch on what you just said. In African religion, a well-trained priest or priestess of those faiths understand that they are and must be all things to their congregation or to their community, and including psychology, including counseling, including, father figures and things like that. So your point in discovering that in terms of what the Christian minister or preacher has to be is quite accurate. A good minister, like my old minister when we grew up in South, Reverend Lawson, had to be all things. And what I discovered and loved about voodoo religion was the Hungan or the Mambo, and their sanctuary was they were lovingly called by the community Mamam, and that was a title that was beloved to the female or to the priestess, who these women, very powerful, very, very respected and revered, and who had very, very good status, but became almost instantly, when a new child was born, was always brought to there for blessings, but also because they was like bringing them to mother. And it didn't negate or get around the fact of the individual's personal mother or father, who also was bringing the child, the newborn, to the spiritual temple or the sanctuary to be with the Mambo or to the Hungan for those very reasons. Now, the idea of the circle, the quite different philosophies, all coming to almost the same point of reference in terms of the circle. Completeness is the one thing that they all have in common. Anything you study belonging to God is in completeness. It is not just 360 degrees, but it is 360 degrees times the total number of degree of a complete circumference, like a bubble, for example. You've never seen a cricket bubble, or a bubble missing a particular side or is kind of oblong.
Right.
It is a complete orb. It is like, we understand that the earth and even the sun has shapes, or the moon has its shapes, but in its completeness, it is the perfect orb. It's perfect. And it needs nothing from us in its perfection to create or to maintain perfection. And so, therefore, those rituals that you see are ancient wisdoms that have come a long way, that even permeates Christian church and value and other faiths, that when you march and you see the completeness and the going in circles around and around, you are in fact imitating on one level, in one philosophy, the completeness of God's perfection, and you're seeking that perfection within yourselves. It is a great ritual. Now, interestingly enough, when the captives were brought to the island of Hispaniola, which later became Haiti, if you may remember, even as late as 1939, it was the Catholic priest in that island, ordered by the Vatican, to kind of de-Africanize the Haitian people. And a lot of them, even in their slavery times, were given a ritual around the sycamore tree. They had to march in a circle backwards, and they called it the Tree of Forgetfulness.
Go ahead.
Well,
I mean, you got me sitting on the edge of my seat, brother. Hold on a second while I do what we must do here. This is Respect for Life, coming to you from the campus of City College in Harlem, USA, and officially this station is
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
We're speaking with Brother Papa John. He's in Philadelphia, USA, and we're talking about psychology. We're talking about healing. We can get into a little bit of that. we're talking about African religion and philosophy. Go to the attempt to de-Africanize the practices of the captives on the island of Hispaniola, Haiti / Dominican Republic. But first, rather than just go into that, why was it important for them to de-Africanize the religious practices of our people, our ancestors? And that matches up against what we have been fed to believe, that we are jungle bunnies, we're savages, we eat people raw, or we put them in a pot and cook them and roast them. And so in many of our educations or miseducations, we would say, why not de-Africanize the practices of our jungle ancestors? Proceed.
Well, the destruction of black civilization, or African civilization, as we all read, had to take place on multi-levels. And the idea of breaking down us in just society and breaking down our ability to have belief that we would be free. I mean, it's one thing to try and break the minds and change the people's ideals, but in heart and in faith and in the souls of those very folk coming through ages of birth canals is deep-seated in them, their spirituality, which cannot be so easily thrown away. And the slave masters saw it, and later coming, the Catholics began to see it. And they saw that, particularly in Hispaniola, or in what would be Haiti, that it was a place that they could not gain control of until they gained control of the minds of the African people by making them forget about Africa, making them forget about African spirituality, African deities, African anything, because they are now in the New World. And the ways of doing that were mocking certain rituals that they did when they found them involved in African religion practices. And one of the practice that you see people, when you see the circle that is evolving around a particular center, some people say, well, they're gathered in a circle around the fire. In the Haitian centers, they have what they call a peristyle, which is a pole or tree that sits in not in the center, but in a place, an area of the sanctuary. And it is the energy that it enters into the place, and also is the exit of energy from a particular place. And so a lot of times you see things are centered around it, and it may sometimes appear that folks are in a circle. Other times there are rituals where people, in fact, are moving to particular rhythm, drum patterns, like conga, for example, or Congo rhythms, that people are dancing, and they're doing the mache, and it circles, and it moves in a circle, and people are actually in the dance. Very powerful, very in transit, very spiritually effective, that it can actually induce and bring upon what we call spiritual possession. However, the masters, or the former masters, and the so-called priests of the Catholic traditions knew that they had to get rid of these things if they were ever going to be effective in the island in terms of their mission to bring Christianity into the lives of the African people of Haiti. And even today, it's amazing, from those rituals, you can hear people say, which I have heard with my ears, I'm so glad we were slaves, Because if we weren't, we would never be here. We would never have the fine things we have, these clothes, these cars.
Amen.
So you can see how it began to work, actually, and began to be passed down through generations of people who look back and were shamed that they were African or that they existed in an African world. People who would never have a thought of getting on an airplane and traveling to the continent of their birth, of their origin. And most oftentimes when people do that, you talk about culture shock. I mean, wow, you guys have cabs? Like, not only do they have cabs, but you got to be careful of the cabs you get in, because the guys will rob you just as quick as somebody.
They are swift.
In New York or anywhere in Philadelphia.
They are swift. Yes, I take you there. Yeah, I know where it is.
Absolutely, in a long way. All right.
Now listen, Papa John, before we go to callers, and the telephone number is 212-650-6903, 212-650-6903. You have those who were listening last week, had questions. You have those who are listening today, have questions. And in 3 minutes, you are welcome to begin your calls into WHCR 212-650-6903. When you look at what is called voodoo or voodoo, you also look at other forms of African religion as practiced here in the Western Hemisphere. You have a system in Cuba, you have a system in Puerto Rico, you have a system in Brazil, and they all are, quote, somewhat similar, but because the languages of the captives is different, the observer would see them as being different and super different. What can you share with us on the different systems of African religion and philosophy practiced in the Western Hemisphere?
Oh, sure. I'm not only well-traveled to all of throughout the diaspora and Africa and to South America, and have worshipped and been a part of the major shrines and houses that are in those places. I can first tell you, and I want to bring just the thing, voodoo is a word that most people hate to hear, and they kind of shudder because of the Hollywood and the media in terms of what they put. Oh, this is voodoo. Oh, wow. No, voodoo is just the name of a particular spiritual movement or religion, if you will. Vu is an old Dahomean word from Abomey. We do not have to be afraid of that word. It only means mystery. Jew, because the Haitian, through their the enslavement by the French, who spoke Parisian French, is a word meaning God. So together, the word actually means, literally, mysteries of God. Now, you have voodoo, you have in Cuba, which I visited, you have what they call Lukumi and Ifa religion, or Sacado Ifa. You have also Santeria, as in Puerto Rico, and even in the Dominican Republic. You also have Shango Baptist in Trinidad, where we had a wonderful time in practice with there. They were facing the idea of changing a 500-year-old tradition from the way they worshipped as they formed their faith in Trinidad, and were thinking about adopting a more orthodox faith in Africa. And we were part of that movement and those debates in Trinidad. Very, very enlightening. Candomblé, we were in Sao Paulo and Paulista, Brazil, with the king there, and was a part of watching the same similar kinds of developments of their faith in Brazil, and also throughout the different parts of the Western Africa, like being in Nigeria and Odoremo, looking and being a part of Ifa there and the Yoruba worship. Interesting enough, the word Yoruba, a lot of traditional people began to drop use of that word simply because it was during the time that they were chased out of the East, of the original homeland. They were dubbed by the foreigners, the Arabs, and no offense to any Arabs who came into that, because you weren't a part of that. They named the fleeing people, the original people of those lands, Yoruba. It is an Arab word, and you can look it up. It means you bastards. And so a lot of the traditional people or Yoruba people don't wish to be called that anymore. Many of them are calling themselves Ishashe, and that term simply means as it is. Well, their faith has never changed from the original time that they were emerged from the Garden of Eden in the east of Africa around Kilimanjaro.
Now, before we go to the calls, there is the question of the. I'll frame it this way. I have awareness, not firsthand. I have awareness of Nigerians, for example, who have come over here to study and practice Western medicine, and have had problems until they go back to Africa, back home for a visit, and they have to sit down with the elders and get their mind straight. I'm putting it in street term, but the problems that they had were problems of an imbalance. They weren't as successful as they could be, and I'm not talking about material success. There was confusion. There was an imbalance, a vacuum, and the understanding that I have is that they had left off of the appreciation of their ancestors, so that was a gap that they had formed as they went further into the Western practice of medicine and education. And it seems that there might be that kind of imbalance that is with Black Americans as it relates to being cut off from our connection with our original base of religious worship.
Yeah, it's a sad thing to watch a given people happen to return home to try and make their connection to their roots and the things that, America changes you. Most people don't think that they will be changed by America, but you will. I can give you hundreds of examples. But yes, I've watched the same in Haiti, the same anyway. You pick a place. Those folks who find themselves not as successful because the success of a particular individual is going to determine almost a luck of the draw. In terms of availability of a particular position in whatever given field you're looking to be. You may become a doctor. You may graduate as a lawyer. But the degree of success still may determine just how good you are over someone else that is selected. However, it doesn't mean that you have to give up that from which you have come from. And that's the thing that many of our young people are doing today. They find themselves almost ashamed, to be a part of that. Come and wear your Western clothes and dress up nice. Do what drive exotic cars. Do whatever you want to do, but never forget who you are and where you come from. The greatest thing about health that I love about my friend Elton Brown, Elton's 86 years old. He is He is one of my best friends, and we have traveled the world together and still traveling together. He has his full mind, all his original teeth, his full health. His body is strong. You would think he's working out. You know what he does? He eats the way he ate as a child. He continues to do the very same things he does or have done since his parents brought him into the world. And he has not changed that. I have learned so much from him just by watching and eating and doing the things that he's doing. We've cured tooth decay, for God's sake, something that people say you cannot do. I'm a witness of it. I myself don't have cavities by what I don't eat and what I do eat.
Telephone number 212-650-6903. You're welcome to call in before we conclude our interview and our dialogue with Brother Papa John in this interview number 2. Last week you were calling as we were going off the air, and they chasing me. They have bats and everything. They have fly bats and wood bats with the door.
Well, let me also give my number.
Yes.
Here in Philadelphia. Please call me at 215-276-3633. Again, 215-276-3633. I'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to, if you're in trouble, if you need help, if you want to just know, looking for information, if you want divination or readings or things like that, if you have a specific ailment or something going on that you want to know about, just call the number. I mean, nobody will think any indifferent of you. You're still going to be who you are. You're just going to be a little bit more educated about it.
Talk about some of the victories that you have had, combination of your Western training and psychology combined with what you know of African religion and philosophy. What have been some victories? And I'm talking about what they would say in school as being some case studies. What comes to mind?
I have thousands of files, and anyone who know me know that, or can test that since 1982 I was involved with this. I think some of my more memorable cases have been sometimes with elders with the treatment of certain afflictions or diseases, and they come in and they have just been everywhere, as you know all too well. And what happens is they have no more trust, they have no more belief, so they choose to come to voodoo as a last chance, last legging it. And usually, by that time, their bank accounts are exhausted. They have no money to pay me, even though I demand payment, because I'm just as good as any of your doctors that you went to when you first got sick. In fact, many of them call me. However, the case studies particularly was a man who had 5 cancers in his head. The doctors, they're like, look, 2 weeks, and that was it. We did a work for Papa Dambala. He was the force or the energy of health. He rules in the mind. One of the ancient forces of Abome, the Mawulisa, Papa Dambala, respectively, is a doctor in this spirituality and king of most of the African forces. Now, we went to him and we found a way to work, and through prayer and through baths that we work with this individual through transdermal systems that we did for him, brought those cancers actually into one lump. It moved, the cancers actually gathered in one area, and the doctors were able to operate. They removed a piece of his tongue and jaw and successfully cured this man. Do you know, the doctors, they call, they say, look, we don't even want to know what you did or all of that, but we've never seen anything like that. We remember particularly this white woman came to us, and I didn't know why she was there. We were doing a ceremony at the time, and one of the Loa that was down there was Ogun. We just walked through the crowd up to her, and he put his cutlass or the machete against her chest and scraped it down to the floor and smacked it, and then walked away. And we thought nothing of it, but later that week, the woman came back and said that I had to come make confession. No one knew this, but I had a lump on my breast, and I certainly was scheduled for surgery, and I was in trouble. She said, I was not supposed to be here. When they went back and examined me before they did the surgery, they saw a space where the lump was, and the rest is history. So
the phenomena of healing outside of the Western zone is a phenomena to those of us who have been brought up in the box of the Western zone. So even remedies that our mother might or grandmother might give us for a cold. Hey, honey, all you got to do is do this. We don't believe. I was in a store, and the guy needed something for his chest cold, and he was asking the lady, what you got that you can take during the day? And I started to tell him, get yourself some ginger. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Not as a Negro. But I was watching the brother. He was a cook in a restaurant in the neighborhood. And he bought something for $3.75. Some, brand of this, that, and the other. Pardon me. But I'm saying that it is being in the box is just very difficult. Now the calls come in. All right, we only got time for one. God bless you. Your call.
Well, God bless you. What a good call to take. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And to your guests, Baba, Papa John, Alafia,
Ni.
Frenny, and it's a fantastic show, Brother Leroy Black, as usual. Your guest is phenomenal. I'm looking to meet him the next time I'm in Philadelphia with Sister Atia and them over there at the health food store in Baltimore. But I just want to say, our African healing through our culture is far superior to any culture on the planet Earth. Whereas the Europeans, when you get sick, I'm going to call quickly, when the Europeans, you get sick, they use chicken soup. When our African ancestors and culture, we use the chicken foot.
Interesting.
So I'm going to leave you with that.
Thank you.
God bless you both. Ashe, Allah your knee. And we'll talk soon, sir. Well, look at my scar, Brother Black.
God bless you. Wa alaikum salam. All right, thank you. That was a fitting end to our interview here. We are down to the wire, my brother. Give your contact number again.
Yes, you can call the Thirst Off Sanctuary at 215-276-3633. That's 215-276-3633. Again, I am Papa John.
Papa John, I want to thank you very much, Brother Usman Kareem of New York, putting us in contact with you. Sister Octavia, also out of New York, now in Philadelphia, saying, hey, you can't be interviewing the brothers down here and don't tell me. But anyway, and may Allah be pleased with Brother George Whcr, beautiful brother who made his transition recently. Papa John, thank you. God bless you and your family.
God bless you too.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your support of WHCR. Remember Harlem businesses, the vendors on 125th Street, Sister Neffy with her original soaps, and Brother Melchizedek with DVDs, Brother Jihad with DVDs. He's in front of Burger King. And Sister Knowlton, Volta, she's down on 125th Street and 8th Avenue with original music from the oldies and goodies zone. God bless you all with a wonderful and a fantastic day and a holiday. Don't feed your mamas and your grandmothers any pork. You don't need that on the table. That's your business. But after you feed it to them, they get palpitations of the heart, high blood pressure and all that, and it's not necessary. Feed them some other meat. And, enjoy your day. Remember, Make My Cake is one of the sources of good cakes and pies and whatnot in 139th Street, 7th Avenue, 116th Street, and St. Nicholas. God bless you all. Thank you for your support of WHCR and the programs that promote on WHCR.
For a twist on a seasonal classic, the Apollo Theater presents Duke Ellington's Nutcracker Suite and Sacred Music in the show Ellington at Christmas, featuring Savion Glover, Keith David, Liz Wright, Priscilla Baskerville, the David Berger Jazz Orchestra, the Abyssinian Baptist Church Choir, and students from the Dance Theater of Harlem. That's Ellington at Christmas, Saturday, December 7th at 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. Tickets are available at Ticketmaster.com. For more information, visit www.apollotheater.org. According to recent statistics from the New York City Coalition Against Hunger, an average of 1.5 million New York City residents, in which 1 of 4 are children, live in households facing food insecurity. The coalition's latest annual survey indicates that local New York City's emergency food providers, such as food pantries, soup kitchens, and brown bag programs, reported a 20.8% increase in need for their services due to the city's recent recession. The Harlem Hospital Center Department of Food and Nutrition Services wants to help curb these alarming statistics this holiday season by conducting its annual food drive. From Monday, November 11th through Tuesday, December 24th, there will be donation receptacles located throughout Harlem Hospital Center. All donations will be shared with the Harlem Mothers Save, Stop Another Violent End. If you have questions, feel free to contact Mr. Sean Shivers at 212-939-1936 or Chanel Rogers at 212-939-1935.
Greetings, this is Honey from Harlem 411. Tune in to Harlem 411 Friday nights at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for information on health, education, housing, community events, and more. Harlem 411 serves information to you with the opportunity to call in with your questions. Harlem 411, produced to serve the community's needs. Let us serve you with information. Friday night, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Harlem 411.
Mic check.
Keep it locked on WHCR 90.3 FM.
Okay.
New York.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Variedades Latinas es
música,
alegría, entretenimiento,
farándula,
deportes,
noticias,
comentarios
y mucho más.
Inicia tu programa favorito, Variedades Latinas. Con Bendy Méndez y Martín de la Cruz.
Variedades Latinas, lo mejor de Nueva York. Música, farándula y mucho más. Un manantial de información. Y aquí llegó el fiel de la radio. Puntual y al día, Arismendi García. Ahora te invita a disfrutar. ¡Hey!
buenos días, ¿qué tal mi gente? Un placer inmenso estar de regreso con ustedes. Hoy es lunes, comienzo de semana 25 del mes de noviembre, año 2013. Buenos días, bienvenido a este espacio Variedades Latinas, el impacto musical de Nueva York, como cada lunes, miércoles y viernes, 10 a 2 de la tarde, a través de esta su estación 90.3 FM. Mi nombre, Arismendi Mendi, de cariño el fiel, el único fiel que a través de radio les da cariño y a sus oídos un toque musical. Bueno, esperamos que más adelante se una a nosotros Martín de la Cruz, ya está por aquí Raquelín. Hoy estamos en programación especial desde hoy hasta el viernes. Pues precisamente mañana 26 de noviembre en República Dominicana se estará llevando a cabo lo que es una jornada de 24 horas de puro merengue. Nosotros no tenemos 24 horas de programación continua, por lo tanto pues dedicamos la programación completa de Variedades Latinas, la semana completa al merengue precisamente. Pero vamos a dar oficialmente los buenos días a Raquelín, que está por aquí en cabina para acompañarnos y acompañarles. Buenos días, Raquel.
Muy buenos días, Arismendi. Buenos días tengan todos ustedes, amigos que son fieles a su espacio de Variedades Latinas. Como dijo Arismendi, tenemos una semana súper especial, a la altura de como usted y nuestro merengue se lo merecen.
Así que los invitamos a participar con nosotros a través de la línea telefónica, el 212-650-6903, estará siempre disponible. Usted puede llamarnos, solicitar los temas que usted quiera y, por supuesto, también dar su opinión y compartir con nosotros durante esta programación especial de esta semana. Así que arrancamos oficialmente con 4, 8, 12 horas de merengue. El magnate creo que mañana también se une y William Torres el viernes, y por ahí para abajo vamos a ver cuántas horas empatamos de merengue continuo en esta, la 90.3 FM. Quédese ahí pegadito a su radio. Vámonos con esto que dice así. ¡Ay! ¡Mami!
Que llamen la patrulla, que me quiero entregar.
Ay.
No lo muevas.
Soñar es la vida mía, soñar contigo mi bien, soñar que me das en sueños lo que me niegas después, soñar que ya estamos juntos en una casita azul donde las aves se aman como me querías tú. Soñar es la vida mía, soñar contigo mi bien, soñar que me das en sueños lo que me niegas después, soñar que ya estamos juntos en una casita azul donde las aves se aman como me querías tú. ¡Eva! Contigo, anoche soñé, yo soñé contigo, que eras mi mujer y yo tu marido, que eras mi mujer y yo tu marido. Cuando desperté me puse muy triste, cuando desperté me puse muy triste, porque te llamé y no respondiste, porque te llamé y no respondiste. Anoche soñé, yo soñé contigo, que eras mi mujer y yo tu marido, que eras mi mujer y yo tu marido. Cuando desperté me puse muy triste, cuando desperté me puse muy triste, porque te llamé y no respondiste, porque te llamé y no respondiste, porque te llamé y no respondiste.
¿Quién te quiere más de lo que yo te adoro? ¿Quién te quiere más de lo que yo te adoro? Chiquita mamonera, ojita de alelí. Chiquita mamonera, ojita de alelí. Dulce de cereza y piquito de barrancolí. Dulce de cereza y piquito de barrancolí. Guirita merenguera, almíbar de cahuil. Guirita merenguera, almíbar de cahuil. Ojitos de ciruela y puñito de maní. Ojitos de ciruela y puñito de maní. santiaguero, dulce naranjita, casabito santiaguero, canto de rolita y carita, mango, vanilejo, canto de rolita y carita, mango, vanilejo, flor de tamarindo, níspero maduro, flor de tamarindo, ay, níspero maduro, duérmete en mi nido que está hecho de amor puro, duérmete en mi nido que está hecho de amor puro. Dominicanita, orgullo del país. Dominicanita, orgullo del país. Es por tu dulzura, vidita, que te canto a ti. Es por tu dulzura, vidita, que te canto a ti. Ay, dime mi amorcito, manzanita de oro. Dime mi amorcito, ay, manzanita de oro. ¿Quién te quiere más de lo que yo te adoro? ¿Quién te quiere más de lo que yo te adoro? Dulce naranjita, casabito santiaguero, ay, dulce naranjita, casabito santiaguero, canto de rolita y carita, mango, vanilejo, canto de rolita y carita, mango, vanilejo, flor de tamarindo, ay, níspero maduro, flor de tamarindo, ay, níspero maduro, duérmete en mi nido que está hecho de amor puro, duérmete en mi nido que está hecho de amor puro. Dominicanita, orgullo del país. Dominicanita, orgullo del país. Es por tu dulzura, vidita, que te canto a ti. Es por tu dulzura, vidita, que te canto a ti. Ay, dime mi amorcito, manzanita de oro. Dime mi amorcito, manzanita de oro. ¿Quién te quiere más de lo que yo